1931. A lone prospector searches for gold and silver in Death Valley National Park and makes a shocking discovery.
He had discovered the entrance to this strange underground city. As Russell got deeper, he suddenly finds this one 9 feet tall giant who's mummified.
This is National Park: Secrets and Legends. Death Valley National Park. 3,000 square miles of unforgiving desert in Eastern California. It's one of the hottest and driest places on Earth, where temperatures often surpass 120 degrees. In Death Valley, all life struggles to survive. But some believe that despite the park's harsh conditions, mysterious and inexplicable forces flourish here. 2003, two hikers enter the most remote area of the park, the Panaman Valley. Drawn to this inhospitable place by the tallest sand dunes in Death Valley, the young couple wander further and further into the desert. Then, at the foot of a sand dune,
what is that?
They make a grisly discovery.
They came across what looked like the remains of an incomplete skeleton. They find some bones, but no skull. The head is missing. The bones are old, dry, desiccated. Seems like they've been there years.
The hikers take a closer look and discover a possible clue. A pair of pink jogging pants suggest the skeleton may have belonged to a woman. But who was she? And how did she end up dead in the middle of Death Valley National Park?
She could have wandered into the desert and gotten lost and died of exposure, dehydration. It's a cruelly unforgiving landscape. Or it could have been something far more nefarious. She could have been the victim of foul play.
An investigation is launched, but 3 years would pass before new technology enables investigators to extract usable DNA from the desiccated bones.
So using this DNA technology, they're finally able to figure out who this person was, and it turns out that these are the remains of a woman named Patricia Parton.
Patricia Parton was a young disciple of the counterculture mystic and best-selling author Carlos Castaneda, who referred to her and 3 of his other disciples as his witches.
Patricia Parton started out as just one of the many young females who were hanging around with Castaneda, but the relationship quickly got much more intense. They became lovers, and eventually Castaneda would legally adopt her as his daughter.
Castaneda often preached about the mystical virtues of suicide. After he died in 1988, some say Parton went to Death Valley in search of a site for her and the other witches to commit suicide and join Castaneda in the afterworld.
Castaneda had told Parton at one point that if he didn't join her upon his own death, that she should drive very, very fast into the desert. Her and the car would just transform into pure energy and ascend into a higher sphere to meet him.
But why did Parton choose Death Valley National Park for the site of her suicide pact? Does the park contain unseen dark powers? 1968, one of the 20th century's most notorious killers arrives in Death Valley. Charles Manson and his group of followers known as the Family start visiting the Barker Ranch at the western edge of the park.
Charles Manson was a cultist who really was adept at convincing young people to join him and believe that he was literally God on earth.
Here, in the remote shelter of Death Valley, Manson indoctrinates his followers, and he is particularly successful with young women.
The women said that they perceived him as Jesus Christ on earth, and he was the Messiah, and if you were serving God, whatever he says goes. Once the women fell under his spell, he used a lot of LSD to get that type of compliance. They would do anything for him, whether it be sexually, drug use, or killing.
In Death Valley, Manson sees the perfect location for initiating his bizarre apocalyptic master plan.
Manson and the family in general liked Death Valley so much because it was so remote. The rules of society didn't apply here because there's really no one to enforce them. Manson's famous quote is, "The rules are, there ain't no rules."
Once his followers succumb to his spell, Manson trains them on how to use knives to kill.
So there is no right or wrong. They have no feelings of guilt or shame or empathy for other people. It's really all about them.
Former police inspector Dosty says that Manson's time at Death Valley was marked by even more sinister activities. He believes that hidden somewhere in the park's mountains are more dead bodies, victims murdered by Charles Manson himself.
There are multiple bodies buried at the Barker Ranch. One that comes to mind was a girl who was freaking out, was not getting along.
It's claimed that after Manson took her for a walk, she was never seen again. Dosty believes she is buried in Death Valley National Park, along with the bodies of many more nameless victims.
I think when we look at the mark that Manson has left in Death Valley, it is a place where multiple people were murdered. Because there's really nothing to stop you if you run into people out here in the boondocks.
Dosty believes the bodies at the Barker Ranch may show a pattern of systematic murder that took place over a period of months.
The history of Death Valley is entirely wrapped around the Manson family and always will be.
Was Manson drawn to Death Valley by a dark force deep inside the park? Is the park a magnet for evil? A bizarre discovery in 1931 may provide a clue.
Dr. Russell, once he made his way down into the cavern, he came into this chamber, and that's where the mummy was, the mummy of the giant.
California's Death Valley National Park is a barren and unforgiving landscape with one of the lowest elevations in the world. Some believe it's also a magnet for darkness that drew a young woman to her death and a murderer to teach his young followers to kill. What is it about Death Valley National Park that can explain these forces? A shocking discovery over 80 years ago may provide a clue. 1931, a prospector named Dr. Bruce Russell is lured into Death Valley's vast and inhospitable terrain.
Up in the mountains surrounding the valley, there's just innumerable canyons and caverns and places to go to look for gold. And he went up in there.
Russell eventually arrives at a rocky bluff in a remote area of the park. Here, on the side of a steep cliff, he notices an unusual rock formation and begins to dig.
And he was digging straight down and trying to get to a vein of gold. And he broke through into a cavern. And what he said he saw is sort of astonishing.
What Dr. Russell discovers takes his breath away. A strange tunnel that doesn't appear to be a natural structure, leading deep into the side of the mountain.
This cavern was enormous. It went for 20 miles. The caverns snaked their way throughout the mountains and maybe even down under the valley itself.
After several hours, Dr. Russell enters a large chamber and encounters a shocking sight. A 9-foot mummy lying on the ground.
What he said he saw in the caverns is what's remarkable. He said he saw the remnants of a civilization, of giants.
The mummy's face is strange and haunting. It is wrapped in animal skin and well preserved by the dry Death Valley air. Lying next to it is a spear, indicating it might have been part of an ancient civilization of giant warriors.
Well, him being a doctor is meticulous. And I'm sure he paid close attention to what he was seeing so that when he made his description, you know, it was accurate.
Who were these giants, and where could they possibly come from?
One theory is that they came from the lost continent of Mu.
According to the legends, Mu sank 12,000 years ago, forcing the giants to flee and settle on the shores of Death Valley.
California was much different then. What California would have looked like was a series of lakes that went all the way to Death Valley.
For centuries, the giants are said to have lived peacefully with local Indian tribes in what is now California and Nevada. But it's claimed that early in the 19th century, for no apparent reason, the giants became vicious killers and began to prey on the local Paiute Indians.
They would dig a hole in the trails and capture Paiutes for food. So the Paiutes banded together with some other nations and made war.
Some say battles were fought and that the giants were eventually defeated. Could dark forces explain the transformation of once peaceful giants into hostile warriors? In 1912, skeletons of several giants are discovered in the area, where it's claimed their last battle was fought.
The University of Berkeley admitted that they brought out of those caves 5 to 6 skeletons of people who were 7 to 8 feet tall and had long red hair.
But after their discovery, the bones mysteriously go missing and are never seen again.
I believe that the powers that be just decided that they would suppress information about giants and even the idea that there was a lake system just a few thousand years ago.
If the government is hiding information, could there be other secrets that aren't being disclosed? Secrets that may shed light on the park's dark power. The answer may reveal one of Death Valley's most chilling stories.
He's focused. Gotta get to Death Valley. Gotta get to Death Valley. Why? What's in Death Valley? What's pulling Paul Whipkey in?
Death Valley National Park is a desolate landscape where plants and creatures survive in a desert void. It's also believed the park has dark powers that some say could be part of a government cover-up. If true, how much could the government know about Death Valley's most hidden secrets? July 10th, 1958, Fort Ord, an Army base in Northern California. Army Lieutenant Paul Whipkey is off duty and heads out for the day. He tells his friends he's going out for a drink.
So he leaves in his civilian clothes, gets in his car, drives into Monterey.
Strangely, Paul Whipkey doesn't stop as planned. He stays on the highway, driving east on a direct line towards Death Valley National Park.
Now that's 9 hours from Camp Ord. Where is he going? Why is he going to Death Valley? Something out there was calling to Paul Whipkey.
When Whipkey arrives, he turns off the main road and drives another 15 miles before he finally stops in a desolate and forbidding section of the park.
And then he does something funny. He leaves his keys in the ignition. He leaves his personal effects, his dog tags in the car. And then he just walks out into the desert.
This is July, where temperatures can reach 120 degrees. In this heat, a person can only survive for 3 days without water. Was Paul Whipkey drawn to Death Valley by the same dark forces that may have brought Patricia Parton and Charles Manson here? 5 weeks after disappearing into the desert, a park warden finds Whipkey's abandoned vehicle.
Yeah, base, I've got an abandoned car here. California plates.
Police search the desert, but find no trace of Paul Whipkey. He is never seen or heard from again.
Why would Whipkey leave his dog tags in the car? Why did he leave the car? Why did he just walk off into the desert? What happened to Paul Whipkey?
According to the Army, when Whipkey failed to return to his post, he was declared AWOL. Why did he travel almost 450 miles to Death Valley National Park? A clue may be found in a conversation Whipkey had with his brother 6 months earlier.
He's saying, I'm going to go on a secret mission. This is big. This is really important. This is really big. I'm going to make a name for myself. So it's possible that Whipkey was recruited into some sort of a covert operation or a secret mission.
Following his disappearance, Whipkey's family members learned that he had been assigned to top-secret military projects. But after 5 decades of searching for clues, his fate remains a mystery to this day.
Sometimes people in the military will volunteer for special missions where they fake their death, where they go into some secret military program where they're never coming back out. They're never going to see their family again.
If Lieutenant Whipkey did volunteer for a special mission, where in Death Valley did he go? The answer could reveal the park's deepest secret.
There are this labyrinth of underground government military installations and bases, tunnels that the government has been involved in digging and constructing for decades.
Death Valley National Park is the driest and hottest area in the United States. Some believe this uninhabitable landscape may harbor a dark force that attracts murderers and suicide seekers. A force so powerful, it may have once transformed a race of peaceful giants into vicious warriors. In 1958, a U.S. Army officer who some claim had worked on a top-secret project vanishes without a trace. Where he disappeared to is a complete mystery. Some believe the answer may lie deep below Death Valley's scorched surface.
It's long been rumored that there are this labyrinth of underground government military installations and bases, tunnels, that the government has been involved in digging and constructing for decades.
Dr. Bruce Russell, who some say found giant mummies in 1931, claimed to have discovered a vast subterranean network consisting of 32 tunnels covering an area of 180 square miles.
Russell claimed that this was a vast cavern system that stretched for miles, going north and south along the west side of Death Valley.
Russell believed these tunnels extended deep in the mountains and under the deserts of Death Valley National Park. Could this underground network explain what Patricia Parton, a disciple of Carlos Castaneda, was seeking before she collapsed and died here? Did Castaneda tell her these caves were the perfect place for his disciples to carry out their suicide pact?
Death Valley National Park offered Castaneda and his followers, I think, a complete package, not just the immensity of the desert landscape and its unforgiving nature, but also this network of tunnels that might be deep enough to facilitate what he was calling the jump into the abyss.
It's believed that Charles Manson was also drawn to Death Valley in search of a subterranean world deep below the desert.
He was looking for a hole in the ground that led down to this underworld, and that would be their salvation from, the apocalypse that was going to take place across the world. His belief was that it was somehow magical, and that magic spot would allow them to survive the collapse of civilization.
For Manson, the caves were only part of his fascination with Death Valley. He was also obsessed with what lied beyond them. He was drawn to one of Death Valley's most mysterious geological formations, to a place called Devil's Hole. A small fissure which opens up into a huge underwater cavern filled with scalding hot water, the bottom of which has never been found. Here, Manson believed he could communicate directly with the devil.
Charles Manson's mind was he wanted to be the devil himself walking the earth. To live in the devil's hole, to drain the water of the devil and make it paradise, because he thought that was paradise. The devil's hole was the bottomless pit. It was the gateway to a place that you never return, a gateway to a place of torment.
The mysteries of Death Valley are as vast as the park itself. If Devil's Hole is indeed a gateway to hell, it may explain why the park could be a refuge for an unseen, sinister power. A power that for centuries may have lured so many into darkness and evil.
People have factual evidence stating that Death Valley is a place that you can encounter the devil, a place that you can have a relationship with the devil. I think there's some truth to that.
Death Valley is a very dangerous place, and it's called Death Valley for good reason.
I believe in my heart that the devil's trying to still lure people into this location. You know, the devil never left Death Valley.